Good morning, Dr. Chen and all distinguished guests and professors. It is my great pleasure to share with you some of my thoughts on universal healthcare and the future. And I'm going to present more of a visionary talk rather than the technical detail, because we have many highly knowledgeable and competent professors and experts today. They will discuss some of those details. And my talk divided into 3 sections. The most important part will be in the last sections. So let's start on the first part. So before I start, I also want to say something about my philosophy in teaching. I emphasize 2 principles. The first one is following the Zen masters. It is more important to ask the right question, critical question, than try to find an answer. And second is my own. The process to find an answer is as important, if not more important, than the answer itself. So don't expect me to give you any answer. Instead, I hope I can stimulate to think and ask more questions. So to begin with, how do we view the health system has a profound impact on how we think about the system and the future. So how we think of the health system can profoundly determine who has the right to health care. Either we see them as a consumer and individual freedom, or we see them as a citizen and social freedom. So I created this comparison. They have a profound impact when we see them as a social institution in terms of the people, in terms of claim to health care, in terms of governance, and then finally, in terms of the primary goal. And I think those principles are important to think about, particularly the focus of today's conference about health workforce. And I try to summarize what are the important social structural factors affect the formation of any health systems. And then some common goal of health system finance. I will skip the usual suspect, but emphasizing the last one too. The income redistribution serve a very important social function. But more importantly, this is seldom discussed about. Health system can contribute to a better or worse society. And in the US, there's a frequent nonstop debate about why should we have a universal health care. And most people didn't realize. So for example, I have done more than 2 decades of public meetings. Every time I advocate universal health care, one common objection is, why should I pay for other people's health care? This is out of ignorance, because even in the private finance, we are paying for other people's health care. So the first 2 layers of redistribution are the same, whether it's private or public. But what differentiates the public is the last one, the distribution from high income to low income. And in the last 2 days, Global Health and Wellbeing Conference, a lot of experts talk a lot about that. I will quickly go through some of this. Again, many of you know about the Taiwan's high achievement in IT field, and equity in the burden of healthcare through the quintile distribution. High public satisfaction, and this is from the British newspaper, that Taiwan is an outlier of the affordability and as well as the quality. And most recently, about the CEO world. But also, we have challenges about the financial sustainability. Towards the end, I will talk about a complex issue and concept of sustainability. I will take this opportunity to also briefly introduce one of my current work started last year. Oregon State and Washington State are the 2 states in the United States started to develop universal health care, a state-based public finance universal health care. And I'm fortunate to be appointed by our governor as one of the 9 members of the governance board. And so this is the process. We went through 3 stages of legislations. 2019 and 2022, Oregon probably one of the first states through referendum to legislate healthcare is a basic right, and government has an obligation to provide. So this provides the very important legal foundation for develop universal health care. And this most recently detailed how that shall be proceed, including the governance board. And we are tasked to develop the full plan by next year, September. And then the next 2 phases will be the legislature will review and approve, and then finally the state referendum. And so we put 2003, actually we don't know exactly when that will happen. But hopefully, Oregon and Washington will become the first 2 states. Canada started the universal health care from Saskatchewan. So from one province spread, and we are hoping to do the same thing. And in our process, we also developed those key components. And I advocated for ethical principle and distributed justice to start with. So we spent 2 months to discuss those foundations. And then the governance, finance, coverage, benefit, and delivery. Now, go to the core part of the 3rd part. How do we reimagine the future of our health system? And again, my talk is not specifically for Taiwan. I hope to make it more universal, applicable to any country thinking about universal health care. I try to summarize common major concern of healthcare system. Again, these are the usual suspects. But one of the issues is looming large that we need to prepare for the challenge. AI, big data, privacy, particularly AI combined with robot, that I can safely predict within about 5 to 10 years, AI combined robot will replace a lot of health workforce. Already in the United States, AI are replacing counseling. More and more people using AI instead of a real psychologist for counseling. And whenever I have opportunity to talk to medical students, I always give them this recommendation. You have to be forward thinking. What you can do and AI or robot cannot do. Because anything AI and robot can do will replace you. And that goes to any project, any profession, including professors. Professors can be replaced by AI as well. And how we face those common challenges, I separate them by 2 dimensions. One is technical. So including how we continue quality improvement, cost control, but I highlighted the health information technology and other innovation will be important means to address those major challenges. And again, this is not intended to be an exhaustive list. I just give some important example. But then there's a political, we often neglected political dimension of facing the challenges. And one is foremost is solidarity and caring capacity. That will highly determine what or whether our system is sustainable. And I will elaborate a little bit about that later. And of course, there's equity, efficiency, but also governance. And governance is an area, in my personal opinion, is largely overlooked in Taiwan. And the last 2 is a bit unusual. To have a sustainable and resilient health care, we need to have our system become kind and friendly. I did not invent that concept. That concept actually came from Haften Mahler, the former Director General of WHO, who introduced the most innovative initiative, primary health care. So the primary health care principle include the health system has to be kind and friendly to the people. And lastly, imagination. Don't let the current status quo limit our imagination. And in my teaching and talk about health system, one of the common questions raised is which system is the best system? But then I always like to reply with questions. The best system for whom, in what? So for example, when I teach US health system, I always make this contradictory statement. I say, United States has the world's best healthcare system and worst healthcare system. So that's contradictory, and of course, you can see students puzzled. Then I explain, if you are among the top 0.1% income group, US has the world's best healthcare system. But if you are like me, the other 99.9% income group, sorry, the current system is the worst possible system in the world. And so what form is an important critical question we have to ask. And I want to talk a little bit about how we shape our thinking in terms of moving toward excellence, moving toward the visionary health system. And I like to quote David Hume, one cannot derive ought from is. This is the most frequently confused concept, particularly two professions are most prone to confuse ought from is. Economists and health professionals. I use this diagram inspired by one of my mentors, Professor Bob Evans. This is where it got confused. So we have ABCD intervention, each proven effective in treating or preventing disease, PQRS. But there are different teams doing that. And those who find the proof, they often advocate, we need to do intervention A and likewise. But to find the causal relationship is science. But which one the society should choose is not science. It's politics in the sense of public affair. It's normative. So I further developed this diagram. Choosing the health system goal, which is also a matter how we plan the future workforce. That belongs to the normative value preference, political, and it requires democratic governance process. But how to achieve that belongs to the positive dimension. And this is a quote from Evans that I invited him as a keynote speaker in 2018's Universal Health Plan at OSU. So this is another diagram to show how we think about priority and about our health system as well as the workforce. Likewise, to expand it broader, we also need to incorporate the One Health concept. So the sustainable system has to start from the determining social goal and preferred distributive justice and associated allocative efficiency. That in turn affect two dimensions, the political sustainability and financial sustainability. These are highly related. That in turn will shape how sustainable and resilient is our health system. I'd like to quote another important scholar, Alan Williams, that he argued, whatever we do, it should be in a manner reflect the value of the community. The community's and professional role in this chart, the health system's goal, community's value determine that, but then the academics and professions determine how, and community value determine what. Another quote from late Professor Reinhardt, sustainability is actually a moral issue. And in terms of resilience, we have to think for whom, for what, and in what. And to reach resilience, we need innovation, compassion, and adaptation. Finally, I'd like to use the framework of arguably one of the greatest Chinese philosophers in 20th century. In three realms, in the start with, not many people can reach the first realm, meaning you're visionary, you know what to strive for. And then you persisted in the second realm. Again, only small percentage of people reach the second realm. that you persisted despite all the barrier. But then very few actually reach the transcendence, the last realm, meaning after your visionary, your strive, suddenly you found you neglected the real important things just around the dimly lit corner. So where is our dimly lit corner? That's the question for us to think about. Thank you.